and welcome to the live show with Musart. Today I have a very special guest. As you may know, she's a bit of a TV star, and her name is Hina Junejo, who is an empowerment and relationship coach. She has a wonderful journey, and I've been trying to track her down, and finally we've got her. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
No, it's been a pleasure. I've been hoping to have you back after we had your whole family here. I hope you guys watched that episode. It was hilarious.
I know that was a bit of an experience, but yeah, alhamdulillah,
but
it went well.
you know, it was everybody loved it.
Yeah.
So, but your story of where you are coming from and how you got here, you know, when you told me that story, it was a very emotional story. It even had me in tears. I would love you to share that with the audience today.
Yeah, Musart, I came into this country in 2011, but to begin with, I would like to share that alhamdulillah, I'm a very proud survivor of domestic violence as well as a divorce. So my journey, or say a messy journey, started when I was at the age of 18 and my parents married me. And they married me to a landlord.
Okay.
So back in Pakistan, they're called as verderas. And being married into a verdera system is, so basically the title verdera is a mindset. It's not only a status, but it's a mindset. And it's also a lifestyle, if you like. Now, it's a kind of a lifestyle in which, you know, apparently you've got the license to kill and do all the nasty things that you can, and you just get away with it. It's such a corrupt system.
Is it like when you've seen the Pakistani dramas when they have the takurs and the big landlords who have big cars? And
yeah, absolutely.
Is it just like that?
Yeah,
and if they have such over-empower and they make such silly rules, or, you know, you can see in Pakistani dramas, I don't know if you watch them, but you know, where the say if say one of the women who's about to get married, her husband dies, and then she has to marry this old guy or something like that. Is it that kind of ruling, or
yes,
like very backward ruling?
Yeah, it's absolutely the same. So basically the rules are based on their own convenience. You know, they would, being men, you know, because our culture, Asian culture, is very, very male dominating. So they basically, the male members in the society, and especially in the verdera system, have all the right to manipulate the rules and the systems based on their convenience. So for me, I had to deal with system. So it was like me playing against or fighting against one to many. So it wasn't one person that I had to deal with.
Who else did you have to deal with?
So it was like, you know, his family, immediate family, people from his extended family, people from his clan. Because you see, if you are portrayed to be a victim to one person, then literally everybody who would, you know, get a chance to have their hands on you would try to, you know, do that.
Take advantage.
So then, you know, I was just trying to cope with it, had my coping mechanisms on with full force, and I was just dealing.
Was you the eldest daughter-in-law?
No, yeah, I was the oldest daughter-in-law, yes, and but that doesn't really make much of a difference. I mean, as opposed to if my ex-husband would have been married to somebody from his own family, then the entire ball game changes. But because then that woman would have, you know, an upper edge, a stronger hold, if you like. But because so then my hold to begin with was very, very weak. And so I was just dealing with it one day at a time. I had my coping mechanisms, you know, backing me up. So I was just dealing with it, you know, coping with the situation, going forward one day at a time, trying to deal with it. And basically, you know, in my mind, just getting immune to the system to a point whereby the problem does no longer seem like a problem. You get used to it so much because your coping mechanisms, as much as they're good to deal with the situation, they just try to make you comfortable, you know. And then once when you're in your comfort zone, you don't feel like nudging, you're scared to move out of it. So that's what I was doing, dealing with the situation, using my coping mechanisms one day at a time. But then you see, whilst I was in this chaotic marital relationship for 12 long years, the worst thing that can ever happen to anybody is the mental conditioning that they do to you in a very subtle manner.
What kind of?
So you to see the world from their lens.
Right.
And anything that goes wrong, they would make it show to you or look like to you as if it's okay for them to do it and it's perfectly fine, and I should much rather, you know, put a lid on it and hide my husband's misdeeds, because he's got the right to do it.
So how was he abusing you in those 12 years?
So basically what he was doing, I had to share him, literally every day with God knows how many women.
Really?
So as much as, yeah, I mean.
So he had other wives or hostess, or you could
no,
say escorts?
it was just like illicit relationships. And then I was expected to, feel okay about it because that's what they do. It's like,
But how did you know?
those women used to contact me. They used to ring me and tell me, look, this is what your husband is doing to us. He's using and abusing us. And then I
Who
had
were
to
these women though?
So these women were most of the times villagers. So they were basically being, used and abused, taken advantage of.
So is this because he had power and he
absolutely.
could say, I want to sleep with this woman today. I want to have this obviously illicit relationship with this woman today, and they were helpless because they're in that power system.
Yeah, so most of the times these were helpless women, and then also, there were those who were quite inspired by his wealth and stuff and status.
So he would just pay them.
Well, I haven't gone into the nitty-gritty of what kind of a transaction they had between themselves, but just trying to, give you a picture of what kind of background these women had. So most of them were, helpless women, and then there were those as well who, would just get influenced or impressed by the wealth and the status and the verdera system, if you like. So that's what was going on, and then I was just being snubbed and expected to, accept all of this on the face value and just snub it.
How did you feel at that point when you found out?
I used to feel I was completely broken and shattered, but as I said that I was being mentally conditioned to accept it, then using my coping mechanisms. You see, the main thing is, in our culture, in our Pakistani culture, the way the daughters are being raised, it's like, one of those things, once when you get married, your parents tell you, exactly, so your parents tell you, don't come back until you die, you see.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that I was also told by my parents, when I first got married, that this is the be all and the end all for you. So then I had no other option but to just, take one day at a time, take things with a stride and just go ahead with them.
At this point, did you have children by then? Or?
So you see, I had conceived my oldest son in the first year that we got married, so say in 4 months' time. And then exactly after a year, on my first oldest son's birth, this man, because of some instigation of his mother to him, he just, for me, he just left me in the hospital, as soon as I gave birth to my son. And there wasn't no big apparent reason for him to do that, but just because of something that his mother cooked, just created and concocted and told him. And he was up for it. He was up to leave me. He was up for leaving me. He was up for leaving the child and everything, and he just left. So we were in Islamabad at that point in time, and my father then told me that, look, if he can leave his blood relationship today, which is his son, then he's going to leave you at any point in time. So there's no point looking back and going back. So then I just put my foot down then, saying that, look, Dad, when you first got me married, you told me,
you have to live in
yeah, exactly. You have to, live with it. There is no option for leaving it. And now 1 year down the road, when I share a child with him, you see, and I share a certain level of bonding with him, I love him, he's my husband, you want me to leave him? Now, how ridiculous is that? It's really, really difficult. And now that I'm in this situation, I'm a fighter, I'm going to fight it through, I'm going to make it happen for myself and my child.
So you tried to make it work.
It was like, I was, it was 7 days only that I had delivered my oldest son when I booked a ticket for myself to Sakkar, and I then flew down all the way to Sakkar. And then from there, I took a coach, and then, I was driven down to Jakbabad, and that's where his village was. So this was Eid, because I wanted my child to spend his first Eid with his father. So you see, I've been through lots of doldrums, ups and downs, just to make things happen for myself. I mean, not only for myself, but basically for my children.
Yeah.
So another cultural limitation that I would say is that when you have a son born, then your parents start telling you that you have a stronger place in the family now, and so
he's the heir of the family.
Yeah, exactly. So now your position is much stronger. Things would start getting better. So I was just I was forced to believe that, because then you see I wasn't willing to leave it. Then probably my parents were just trying to show me the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's what they said, that you've got one child already, and fortunately you've got a male heir, so things are going to start getting better there. especially in the Baloch system. You see, that's how it works. So alhamdulillah, in the second year I conceived again, and
how was your relationship up at this point?
You see, I can't explain it any further. The fact that he left the child when he was born is quite self-explanatory about the kind of mindset the person had.
Because you said that you tried to make it work.
Yeah, I was trying constantly to make it work. As I said, that this was a system that I was fighting against, and he was a product of his own system.
So you just come back and
exactly. So it was the same. It wouldn't change, because if there was some ripples of change that I had to create, it would take me years upon years to make that happen, because it wasn't about one person. Now I'm talking about the entire system, and he was a product of that system. So now I'm trying my level best from my end to make things work, but they would just, bounce off. It wouldn't work, because it was never supposed to work. And the fact that he wasn't even educated, back in those days, how should I put it? If you're in, say he was metric fail, literally, so didn't even complete year 10. That's where his education level was. So,
when you conceived the second, so it was the same, you just kept going in and out, spending money, whatever wealth you had, the power, sleeping with women still continuously?
Yeah, of course. That was like an ongoing nuisance all through 12 years.
And then you conceived the second time?
Yeah, the second time I conceived, and then too,
so how would you try to impress him? What would you do? Would you try to look nice for him, or how did you try to make it work? Would you just fight against your own feelings, saying, you know what, he's my husband, I'm going to make this work?
So exactly what
it doesn't matter.
So basically what Islam tells you, you just have to follow that. Please your husband, be it by cooking good food, be it by looking nice, listening to him, abiding by his created rules about looking after his family, listening to his mother, alternate for a domestic staff to look after his whole family and the entire clan. So I was doing all of that. I mean, I hadn't left any stone unturned, but it just wouldn't work. I don't know what his mental blockage was, but maybe I'm thinking that I was an outsider. That's why, I was unable to make things move in my favor, because the rest of the family, or most of the men who have married within family, then too, but they just succumb to the fact that they've got somebody married from their own system who understands their system better. So what they do is, the women in their family, they try to mold the situation into their convenience. So they basically just try to they become gold diggers. So they try to take as much cash and jewelry and all those assets in their names. So basically they just put them under the
so they can
the women, and the men are then left unleashed to do on their devices, basically whatever that they want to do, they're just allowed to do that. So that's how it works. But then you see the kind of a background I came from, it was a very well educated background, not denying the fact, so it was different, but not denying the fact that of course my parents had also
taught you lots of values.
They had taught me lots of values, but they were also at the same time following some cultural taboos as well, which were embedded, and so they couldn't part with that. So all of this was, coming my way, and inherently I wanted to rebel. I wasn't accepting this all, but then at the same time I knew it was wrong, because those were not the kind of life I was living, or my husband was living in my house, was deadly against my principles, against the principles of Islam, against the values that I had been given by my parents.
So did you carry on practicing?
Alhamdulillah, because
did it ever make you waver your belief of, I'm doing all this praying and he's still not
No,
changing?
it didn't, subhanAllah.
Lots of women do go through that and think, what is the point? I'm doing all
praying
this.
to Allah because nothing is changing. No, I think in that situation of turmoil and ups and downs, my parents' du'as and myself reclining towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was my only strength, and that was the only thing that pulled me through, and I was able to deal with the situation one day at a time. So anyways, 12 long years of being in an abusive relationship, being mentally conditioned not only by my ex-husband but by his parents as well. And I was literally being dealt with as an alternate to a domestic staff. So literally what they would expect a domestic staff to do around in the house, cook, clean and do all the messy things for them, that's what I was expected to do. And then the role of a mother was basically being taken care by the grandmother, so that she could then mentally condition the children as well. And there was an element of her being the mother figure and me being just worth of a domestic staff. And they were mentally conditioning my children to, form a disassociation with me, so that they're not dependent or interdependent, more like they're depending on the grandmother for their wants and needs to being met.
So you see, you were just another maid.
Exactly. That's what I was, so that was my status. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
So you see, I was willing to go through all of that, but I wasn't willing to give up on my status as a mother, or my relationship, or my bond with my kids. But that wasn't just happening because of what they were doing, you see. So for me, and they used to threaten me that, if you raise your voice, if you raise your concerns, and if you don't lead your life the way that we expect you to live, then, we have an upper edge. Yeah, we're gonna make your life miserable. We're gonna take your children away from you. So I just went quiet. I was like, okay, as long as I'm able to see my children every day, I'm okay in this situation. So 12 long years was a very chaotic life that I lived with these people. And every alternate day, because of no reason whatsoever, I used to be beaten up, and my children used to be beaten up as well.
And didn't
the grandmother,
that make them want to come to you?
So that's what it is, you see, that they're mentally conditioned.
Who was beating you up daily? Who's getting beaten up?
Yeah, almost alternate days.
Why? What for?
The reason why they were doing this, there was no particular reason, but they had their own vested agenda, and their agenda was to mentally crush me and mentally crush my children. So tomorrow when they grow older, they can't raise their voice in front of them. I can't raise my voice. Hence the reason, I was in it for 12 years. If they had not emotionally, mentally, physically abused me, crushed me and conditioned me, then maybe in the first year when my father tried to give me some support and asking me to leave the person and come back, I would have done it. But to be honest, I went back because I wanted to make it happen for myself and my child. But secondly, I was very fearful. I was scared.
So you was probably scared of every time your husband walked in, he's going to beat you up. Who was hitting you? The mother-in-law would hit you?
No, she used to instigate her son. Okay. So she was the means and he was the weapon, you see. Right. So he used to come back home completely drunk. And then, he used to come and start beating me, and he used to start beating my children as well.
What would she complain about? What was her complaints?
I'm not really sure what she used to instigate him, against me with. But the end result used to be that I used to be beaten up and my kids used to be beaten up as well. So basically, in her mind, she was trying to give my children a picture, or portray a picture in my kids' minds that I am somebody who's really helpless and I can't help them in their life.
So they can't come to you.
Exactly. So they don't,
so basically
refer
breaking
to me.
your army that you already had.
Yeah.
If you think about it, because they're your children, they're your blood. If taking that strength away, because if they were loving towards you, then obviously they're sons. So when sons grow older, they're going to be their mother's shield. So she's probably breaking that shield beforehand.
Absolutely.
She's
and they were scared.
Smart.
Absolutely, because you see, they could see that they've got their blood running in their veins as well as mine. So they could see that this might bounce back on them. So they had to crush them mentally. They had to make them emotionally reliant on them rather than the mother. And can you imagine such a big thing for a child to, have a mother in front of them, but not being able to relate to her and establish that bonding with the mother? So technically, I was like, a live dead person in the form of a mother for them. So since they were born.
So tell me, when did you decide to leave and then fight?
So what had happened was, I didn't decide to leave. At the end of these 12 years, he remarried somebody secretly from his own family.
Wow.
And so then when you remarry, then the other woman wouldn't be willing to share, their husband with the first wife, especially knowing, that she can't conceive. And I've got two boys, so I've got a stronger...
So she took him away from you.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened. And so then when that happened...
Is he still married to her now, to this day?
No. So what happened was, it didn't strike quite well, you see, because if you can't survive the first marriage... Exactly. And then this has been just an ongoing, series for him. He just keeps on going, marrying, it doesn't work, remarrying, doesn't work, remarrying, doesn't work.
Where does all this money come from?
So all this money comes from
inheritance.
Yeah. So not only inheritance, but, the father was a government official as well. So of course he had made a lot of money from there too. So apparently this is all their money coming from the lands. But then it was basically coming from other sources as well. So all the black was being invested into the lands and trying to make it look like it was white. So there's a lot of corruption going on. I mean...
so he decided So he married, and that's when you obviously were hurt, and you wanted. Well, she took him away.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you took your step of leaving then at that point.
No, at that point in time as well, I was still stuck there. I was in a phase of denial. You know, after I was divorced, I was in a phase of denial. And when anybody is in a phase of denial, they just think, no, it can't happen to me. It hasn't happened to me. And you're just problem focused. You're just going, you know, in round and round circles, trying to win your lost battle. You know, so if I was clever, I should have thought that, you know, I've lost my game even before it began, you know, exactly the time when I got married, because I've got married, it was a complete mismatch. So I was just trying to pick up my straws. And so eventually when I got extremely tired, and so yeah, when I got extremely tired, you know, that's when I started realizing and accepting the facts that yes, you know, it has happened to me. It has hit me really hard. So now what next? So when I was at the denial phase, it was more focused towards problem, to the point that, you know, it pushed me to go towards the acceptance. And you won't believe that, you know, the way that I was being divorced, he had asked my sons, in fact, my ex-mother-in-law asked my ex-husband to, you know, give the divorce deed to my sons so that they can come and present me with the gift of my service to my ex-husband for 12 long years. Now, can you imagine what kind of a, you know, mentality that woman possesses, that she's trying to show to my sons, that the element of disassociation from the mother, and also trying to nurture them from a very early stage that divorces are something which is very normal. It happens in the world. You know, so a son, it's perfectly fine for a son to go and gift the mother a divorce deed which is coming from the father.
So okay, that's fine, but then there's a bit where you said, where I remember you telling me when you left them and then you were coming back to fight for your sons because they took them away.
Yeah. So you see, when I overcome the denial phase, during that time only, he had also kidnapped all 3 of my children from my house.
Wow.
So first went through 12 years of domestic
Abuse.
violence, all sorts of abuse, emotional, mental, physical. After that, went through a divorce. I had hardly, you know, overcome the denial phase, whereby when I come back from work, one day I found my children were kidnapped as well. So now I'm like completely broken, devastated, shattered. But then I was thinking, you know, after I felt extremely helpless and tired. So when I was pushed based on my circumstances to accept that this is what it is, that's when I realized, and I started thinking of solutions, that, you know, now that my kids have been taken away from me as well, I'm like, I literally turned into a wild tigress. Because I was a mother, I had to have my children back with me. I wasn't willing to compromise on that, you see. So then I decided that, okay, I need to fight for their custody, and this battle went on for a whole 1 year.
Wow.
So you see, when I got married, I was doing my law at that point in time. So it was just 6 months almost to complete my degree. But I couldn't do that because unfortunately I got married. So I had some legal background.
Yes.
So I made best use of that. And I used to, you know, I hired a very hi-fi solicitor to fight my case in the High Courts. And once when the High Court had given me a decision of, approval, the custody of my kids and everything, then that case went into, you know, the Garden and Ward courts in the lower courts. And so then when it went into the lower courts, I started, you know, fighting the case myself. So I was representing my case myself, because I had to save up on money as well. I knew that I was completely broke. And if I had to, you know, fight this battle through proper solicitors, proper means, then it's going to cost me a fortune. And I didn't have that kind of a money. So I was just making use of the best knowledge that I had, you know, and I used to seek advice from, you know, various solicitors here and there, but basically it was me who was showing up in these cases. So alhamdulillah, I finally, you know, fought the battle, and I won the custody case as well. But then, because there are no systems prevalent in Pakistan, I couldn't get the physical custody because my ex-husband never used to turn up on these notices. You know, the bailiffs used to go and give the summons to them.
Why is he gonna
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point that when he was not coming to attend, you know, the court case, what I did was that I went to the police station, and I used to take mobiles with myself, and we used to be parked for hours outside his house, and he used to just send his servant saying that, you know, Saab is not inside the house. So the mister of the house is not inside the house. So of course, because he's not inside the house, I don't yet have the, you know, what do you call them, they give you the permission to break the locks of the house and then barge inside the house to see if the children were there or if he was there or what was going on. So long story short, because there wasn't any system prevalent in place, or effective system, if you like. So I wasn't being given the justice, even though I had won the custody.
Yeah.
So for 7 long years, I was unable to see, hear, smell,
Your children.
visualize the only thing
Wow.
that I could, the only thing that I had with myself about my children was the memories. So
It's okay.
yeah, I mean, and so in the first year I decided that, okay, now I
But
realize
you have
that,
them now.
yeah, alhamdulillah. But then you
Yeah.
see, the greatest challenge at this point in time for myself is to deal with those children,
Yeah.
because you see,
They've had that distance.
exactly, not only the distance, but they've been conditioned or they've been raised in a different manner, which is totally opposite to the values and the principles that I was raised with. So it's a big challenge, but alhamdulillah, I think I'm doing a good job there.
Then when did you come to London then?
Yeah. So okay. So basically, after the divorce happened, I went through the denial phase, went in an acceptance phase, whereby then I was using these different,
Yeah.
strategies to help myself, so I could help my children.
Yeah.
So I had decided that, okay, I've won. I've got the first achievement. I won the custody battle. But if I can't get them at this point in time, what can I do in order to give them a secure and a secure life, a life full of opportunities, so that they can, they can experience life to the fullest. They can experience life with freedom and the way that they want to live. So at that point in time, I decided that, I should invest in myself and I should move abroad to UK. Now, why I made a choice of moving to UK was because I have known that it's a social welfare country and it helps people, people who have problems and sorts. So I applied into various universities and I was lucky to, get a place for an MSc in Human Resource Development at the University of Derby. So I shifted to UK in 2011. So now at that point in time, as I said, I was completely broken. I had broken. I had no money. And then because of my ego, I didn't feel it to be appropriate to ask my parents for money. So I just asked for loans. I just approached a couple of friends and I was lucky, that they helped me in good time. May Allah gives them the reward for that year. So they helped me in good time. I invested that, money in my education and came on board. And as soon as I started educating myself, started studying towards my MSc, I jumped on to doing a couple of part-time jobs as well, to sustain myself and to sustain my education and to also be able to pay that loan back to the people who had, given it to me. So slowly and steadily, alhamdulillah, when I completed my MSc, I found a really nice job. I started working as a lecturer at one of the prestigious universities in UK. And so alhamdulillah.
Then you started to go more into the mindset.
So basically, based on the qualifications that I had acquired, I was working as a lecturer. So I was delivering CIPD accredited professional development courses in the domain of human resources. So as a trainer, or as a lecturer, I was in the service industry, and that's when I realized that I need to, in order for me to excel in my role, I need to understand how does the human mind operate, what can I do in order to help these students of mine enable learning at a deeper level. So that's when I explored NLP and I started exploring about coaching and mindset and transformation. And so slowly and steadily I started delving deeper, getting my skills honed, my knowledge honed, and then started investing even more, getting myself further qualified so that I have an edge and I have a deeper understanding of how this system works. So basically
now today, you're mashallah you've remarried again, and now you've been a great example to prove to the world that after what you've been through, I can't even imagine, because we complain about small things here and there, but you've been to the peak of it, of the problems, or like you've been rock bottom, that what it's like. So hats off to you for picking yourself up and being here today.
I mean, Musart, to be honest, what was my biggest why and where did I get the motivation to do all that I did was my children, basically. So if if I hadn't gone through this disassociation with them, probably I wouldn't have been here. So it was just that inherent feeling that I need to do something for my children, to get them back together with me in a healthy environment, to give them a life full of opportunities. That was my biggest why. That was my motivation that led me to do what I'm doing. And then of course I was passionate always about people development. So that's the reason why I chose empowerment and relationship coaching as my profession. So whilst I was doing that, I knew, okay, so the second biggest why for myself was also that I was seeking companionship, and I wanted to get remarried, because I was like,
let's save that there, because I want them to watch that episode, because that story is with you together of Hina remarrying wonderful Abdurrahman Tobin, and they have beautiful children, which she hasn't brought today. Wish she was here today running around like that day. But as we are short for time, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'd like you to leave one tip that you would like to give to the audience, to say what is it that pulled you through, and that they can start using from today.
So one tip that I would like to give all of you out there is that you need to understand the way that this mental conditioning works. And I understand that as women, we're more maternal, and we like to use our coping mechanisms just to feel good within ourselves and be able to manage these devastating situations that we are put in. And then whilst using these coping mechanisms, we feel that we're in a comfort zone, but that's the worst thing that we can do to ourselves. Because if there's something that makes you feel comfortable within your skin, then that would not provide you with opportunities to grow. So please, realize, if you think that you being rigged into an abusive relationship, then please make a conscious choice of pulling yourself out of it straight away, rather than preferring to remain in it whilst using your coping mechanisms. So that's one thing. And why I would suggest you to do that is because you see, the after effects or the aftermath of an abusive relationship is not only impacting you as an individual, it's impacting your children as well, which would then cascade onto generations upon generations. So do you see how bad or how messy this gets? So please, this is my request to you, that if you feel that you are in a messy or an abusive relationship, please do not use your coping mechanisms. Just be yourself, be a fighter. Try to work things out in a manner whereby the transition is very smooth and you overcome your problems timely, before it has more detrimental effects, not only on yourself but your generations as well.
Thank you so much. Right, I know Hina's story was getting very, very interesting, and she's about to talk about her next marriage and companionship. So you have to go back to watch my other show with the beautiful couple. As you can see, we've learnt so much from Hina today, and like she said, empowered through, seek help if you're having problems. There's so many women there suffering in silence. It's not helping anyone, it's actually making you worse. You get this life once, go live for it. Now until next time, the live show with Musart.